Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanam Chadi Jamanatira Vanam Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hadi Madhava Punjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hadi Madhava Punjabi Hadi Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanapchadi Jamanatira Vanapchadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hadi Madhava Punjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hadi Madhava Punjabi Hadi Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Astatarasata Srimati Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Your Bhagavatam set. And on the top shelf is Ramayan. We're going to be discussing a topic from Ramayan tonight. Do you know a little bit about Ramayan, you too? You do? Can I give you some Ramayan quiz questions? Uh-oh. Well, I don't know. Do you know who Maricha is? Maricha. Who was the first demon that Ram killed when he was with Vishvamitra Muni? The first demon that Ram killed was, starts with a T, female, Tataka. Tataka. You remember her name? Not really? Okay, then you won't know Maricha either. Maricha was her son. And a little background. He's the one that took the form of a deer. Maricha took the form of a deer that Sita wanted, and Ram went. That was Maricha. But he appears much earlier. very early. Ram was married when he was 12. Sita was married to Ram when she was 7. She gives that history when she speaks to Ravan at Panchavati, and he comes and says, "Who are you?" And she does this whole history of son of Janak, or daughter of Janak, married the wife of Ram, and then so he was 12 when he left Ayodhya and killed the first demon, Tataka. And then her 2 sons were going to defile the yagya of Vishvamitra Muni, and it was a several-day yagya, and at the end of the final day, they came. Subahu and Maricha. And Maricha is the one, Ram fired an arrow and he went sailing 800 miles, 100 yojanas, 800 miles into the sea. And he didn't die. But Subahu died. And Maricha tells his story later. So, little background. Do you know the story of Dhruva Maharaj from the Bhagavatam? Dhruva who, he did austerities in 6 months. Lord Vishnu came and he gave him place in Dhruva Loka, the pole star. That's Dhruva. When he grew up, he was a little boy then. But when he grew up, he became the king. And when he was the king, something very unfortunate happened. The Yakshas killed his brother and his stepbrother. Stepbrother means there were 2 mothers, 2 queens, Suruchi and Suniti. Suniti was his mother, and Suruchi was his stepbrother's mother, the other queen. And his name was Anupam. So he was killed. He was out hunting one day and the Yakshas killed him. The reason I'm telling this story is the Yakshas, who are they? The Yakshas they're not heavenly beings, but they're in this region, Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, Swargaloka. Swargaloka is heaven. And where we are is Bhuloka. And in between is Bhuvarloka. So the Yakshas commonly, they can move around, they have mystic powers, but that's generally the region within the universe where they reside, the Yakshas. They have mystic powers, they're known to be great fighters, and they're also known to be very obedient to Kuvera. They're like followers of Kuvera. Kuvera kind of protects them. So, the Yakshas, Dhruva went to the kingdom of the Yakshas and was slaughtering them all. And the reason for telling that story is the Yakshas, because Maricha's father was a Yaksha. So they're not demons, but they're not like really good devotees either. They're kind of such unusual people. They're powerful. They can be beneficial. They can also be malevolent. So, and they like to use their powers. So, there was a Yaksha, a celebrated Yaksha, whose name was Suketu. Suketu had no children. He underwent austerities for a long time. Brahma came, asked, "What is it you would like?" He wanted a son. And Brahma said, "Sorry, Suketu, but you'll have a daughter. But your daughter will be as powerful as 1,000 elephants and very beautiful." So he named his daughter Tataka. And Tataka, after some time, so She's the daughter of a yaksha, Suketu. Tataka married a demon. And the demon's name was Sunda. Sunda was a demon. So he one of his favorite things was going around and harassing the sages in the forests. He didn't kill them, he just harassed them. So one time he made a mistake. He harassed Agastya. And Agastya, with a curse, turned him into ashes. Sunda was a heap of ashes. But Sunda, who was married to Tataka, had already 2 children. The 2 children were Marisha and Subahu. Tataka is their mother. Sunda is their father. And Suketu is their grandfather. So Tataka wanted to take revenge. And she, along with Marisha and Subahu, went to the ashram of Agastya and charged him and not only was going to kill him but eat him to get revenge for what happened to her husband. Tataka rushed towards the stage as though to eat him, and on seeing her rushing along with her son Maricha, the powerful sage Agastya first cursed Maricha, saying, "You will become a demon." So he wasn't before that, but by Agastya's curse, he became a demon. Highly infuriated, sage Agastya then cursed Tataka, saying, "Henceforward, divested of this beautiful female form, O Yakshasi," that's the Yaksha, feminine is Yakshasi, "you shall become a man-eater, with your form distorted, face contorted, and shape monstrous." So, how that happened, Vishvamitra went to visit Dasarath, that you know. So, again, we don't hear much about, there's 12 verses in the whole of Valmiki Ramayan on the childhood pastimes of the 4 brothers, Ram and his 3 brothers. But when he was 12, Vishvamitra came, and Dasarath was like, wow, fantastic. The great personality, Vishvamitra Muni, is coming here. There must be some purpose, whatever it is. The answer is yes. Then he told them what he wanted. "I'm now engaged in the performance of a great sacrifice. Indeed, the yajna almost reaches completion when 2 Rakshasas named Maricha and Subahu interrupted the performance by dropping flesh and blood upon the sacrificial arena. These vicious Rakshasas are determined to frustrate my attempt." Now, the frustration of the attempt was an assignment given by Ravan to Tataka to stop the sacrifices, and he wanted the sacrifices to be stopped for 2 reasons. He didn't want someone else to worship. He didn't want someone else to be worshipped. He wanted people to worship him. And he was also concerned if by worship they may become very powerful and then they'll have a problem, so he'd stop worship. It was, so that was their assignment. Stop the worship. So they did it, obedient to Ram. By the way, there's a family connection. Maricha, by age, is much older than Ravan, and he's something like Ravan's uncle, maternal uncle, the relative of his mother. That's a long story. We'll go back to Maricha. So Vishvamitra said to Dasarath, "I want your son's help, Ram, to stop these 2 Rakshasas." The reason These vicious Rakshasas are determined to frustrate my attempt. Thus, they repeatedly polluted my altar. And it's because Agastya Rishi used to meditate in this area. Tattaka is obsessed with creating disturbances here. So you know what happened. Dasara said, "Oh, Tattaka, oh, Richa and Subahu. And you mentioned Ravan's name also. Oh, my son is so young." He didn't say 12. In the Valmiki Ramayan, he says he's not even 16. I guess some magic happens when you turn 16, or within the line of kings. So, this is a challenge. I'll go. I've got a whole army, and I'll take care of the problem for you. No problem. So he was like, he said yes, and then he was saying no. And one thing you don't want to do is make Vishwamitra angry. You got a problem if you make Vishwamitra angry. You know another person you don't want to make angry? Huh? Durvasa Muni. Don't make him angry, because you have a big problem. So Vishishta entered. Vishishta is a Brahmin sage, and he counseled Dasarath, don't make him angry. You got a big problem. And not only that, Vishwamitra doesn't need anybody's help. Vishwamitra can create a parallel universe. He already did it. His mystic powers are like amazing. So he doesn't need anyone's help. But he's coming because it's good for your son. It'll be an honor for your son. He won't be in any danger in Vishwamitra's presence. And I'm sure he'll give him the equipment of power and weapons. And, I advise you to say yes. Please say yes. So he said yes. Just hearing from Vishishta. So off they went. And they got to a certain region. It's a nice, there's lots of details in Ramayana. It's a forested area where Indra went after he had killed Vritrasura. Vritrasura, 6th canto Bhagavatam. Vritrasura, it's a long story in the Bhagavatam. But he underwent some atonement for the sin of killing him, because he was the son of Twashta, who was a great Brahmin, and so he underwent atonement in a forested area, and he benedicted that forest that it would become celebrated and very opulent. But when Tattaka came, everybody fled, and it deteriorated, it became like a jungle. So then they met Tattaka, Ram slayed Tattaka. Then they went to at that evening, Vishishta, advised by the Devas, headed by Brahma, give him weapons, because he's going to do a great, Ram, this 12-year-old boy, is going to do a great service for us and for Vishnu. So he gave him celestial weapons, mantras and things. And then they went to his ashram. It has a nice name. Siddha ashram. Siddha means perfection. So the yajna began, and Ram and Lakshman were 24/7, standing guard, ready for anything. And then Richa and Subahu came, doing their thing, defiling the sacrifice. Before they could do that, Ram fired one arrow, hit Maricha in the chest. 100 yojanas, or 800 miles. That's a powerful arrow. And, he was stunned. And Subahu was killed. And then the rest happened, after that. They went to Janaka's residence, stringing Shiva's bow and the marriages and so forth. So we don't hear about Marisha till much later. When we hear about Marisha second time is yeah. Ram is in the forest with Sita, and Marisha is remembering his enmity towards Ram, but knowing he's powerful. But so Marisha had mystic powers. He could assume different forms. So he assumed the form of a stag, like a deer, that had sharp teeth. And he and two of his friends did the same thing. They would behave like deer. They'd go into the hermitages of sages, and then when the sages weren't ready, they'd attack them and eat them. That was their program. And he became infamous, he and his two buddies. So Ram came to hear about this when he was in the forest. So Ram confronted him. Ram released at once 3 arrows, 2 of which killed the other 2 accomplices. Knowing the power of Ram's arrows, Marisha ran away from that place, being afraid of Ram. That's the second time we hear of Marisha. The next time we hear of Marisha is Ravana's visit to Marisha's cave. Now, the circumstance was, after the disfiguring of Shurpanaka, her cutting off her nose and ears, you know that one? You two girls, you know that one? You don't know that one? Oh. May I encourage you to read Ramayan. It's very thrilling. Lots of adventure. A little complicated with all the names, but really interesting. So, Shurpanaka was the younger sister of Ravan. You know who Ravan is? Okay. He had 2 brothers and 1 sister. One was a good guy, the other was a bad guy. The good guy was Vibhishan. You know his name, Vibhishan. Yes? Something. Vaguely Vibhishan. He was very righteous. And the middle brother was Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna. Very powerful. And slept a lot. Kumbhakarna. And the younger of the 4 was the daughter or sister, Shurpanaka. So Shurpanaka is the one that when she saw Ram, she went, "Oh, become my husband and we'll travel together." And Ram said, "I'm already married. And who wants to be the co-wife? But see that fellow over there? He's really handsome, Lakshman. And he's not with his wife. So go approach him." You know that story, right? You don't know the story? It's a really essential part of Ramayan. So I'm encouraging you, please read. I mean, if you can't find the section, let him know and he'll send you the section so you can. It's really nice. Really nice. So she went back to. Lakshman said, "Oh, I'm a servant. And you really want to be married to a slave? I'm the slave of him. So go for him." So she went back to Ram. So the only one that's standing in the way is this skinny wife of yours. So I'm going to eat her. And then we can be married. So she started to charge at Sita, to attack Sita. Ram hollered, "Stop!" She stopped and then told Lakshman Don't kill her, but disfigure her. She was going to attack Sita, devour her. So he cut off her nose, cut off her ears, and she went running to her two cousins that didn't have nice names. One of the cousins' name was Kara. You know what the meaning of Kara is? Donkey. Imagine calling your son donkey. I mean, there's other words, it's also translated as ass. But, anyway, and Dushan means like wicked, wicked-minded. So, she went to her two cousin brothers. Oh, look at this, look at that. Take revenge. So he sent 14 generals. Ram slayed them all. Shurparnika went back. He slayed 14 generals. I'm taking my whole army. 14,000. 14,000. Ram said, Lakshman, take Sita, put her in a safe place near a cave, guard her, don't let anything happen to her. I'll take care of these 14,000 soldiers. And he slaughtered them all, including Karandushan. And one got away. We spoke about this last night. His name was Akampana. 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 You'll read about it. Akampana went back and told Ravana, you know what happened? 14,000 soldiers. Finished. And your two cousin brothers, Karandushan, and all their powerful generals and the whole thing. Finished. What? Oh, I'm going to take revenge. Don't take revenge. She's too powerful. I've got a better idea. What's that? If you can arrange to take Sita away from him, he'll die out of loss of Sita. Oh, that's a nice idea. You have a suggestion how to do it? Sure. Go to Maricha. He'll help you. He's like mystical. He'll know how to do it. So he went to Maricha. By this time, Maricha's living in a cave out of fear of Ram. He's living as an ascetic. He's no longer like a Rakshasa going around eating sages. He's living like a recluse, ascetic. So he went to see Maricha and said, I've got this plan. I want to kidnap Sita. Can you help me? Maricha responded in shock and horror. Whoever has given you this idea is actually your worst enemy. In the guise of a friend, O Ravana, if you try to carry out this foolish plan, it will only result in your own destruction. For Rama has inconceivable powers, prowess, on the level of Lord Vishnu himself. Rama is like a fathomless ocean. Crocodiles are his bow, and whirlpools are his mighty arms. The releasing of his arrows are like the constant flowing waves. The span from shore to shore is the battlefield, wherein his enemies drown. O king of the Rakshasas, it would be far better for you to control your wrath and return to Lanka. Enjoy yourself there along with your wives, and let Ram enjoy with his wife in the Dandakaranya forest. Otherwise, you will unnecessarily bring disaster down upon your head. Ravan listened, and he went back to Lanka. And then there was another encounter with Maricha. And that other encounter with Maricha came after he went back to Lanka. His sister came, Shurparnika, with her disfigured nose and ears and blood and wailing. She was a very manipulative lady. She knew how to manipulate, and she was good at it. Essentially, what she did four things. She said, "You're useless. What kind of a ruler are you? You don't even know what's going on in your kingdom. You don't have proper spies. You're depending upon me to tell you, so you better listen to what I have to say. You don't talk like that to Ravana, but because has affection for his sister, he didn't beat her up or kill her or something. And then she described Ram's power, which was what he already heard from Richa. His power knows no limit. And he killed the 14, single-handed, 14,000 soldiers. They're all the very powerful soldiers. But there's one thing. She lied. That's another manipulation. I tried to get Sita to bring her here to you so that you could enjoy the company of such a qualified queen. But look what they did. And then she made the suggestion. The one way that you can overcome Ram is take Sita away. Take Sita away and he'll become weakened and you can easily defeat him. So now he's hearing this idea for the second time. The first time was Akampana, and now he's hearing the same thing from his sister. So he has this, it's called the Pushpaka Vimana. Vimana means like an airplane. And it's an airplane that belonged to his half-brother Kuvera that doesn't need an engine or gasoline. It's a mind machine. He doesn't even need a driver. You just think to go somewhere. So he thought to go to where Maricha was, and he came in for landing by his cave. And Maricha received him very nicely. They're family members. "Oh, King, what is the reason for your early return to my residence?" Ravan replied, "After hearing of Ram's slaughtering of the Rakshasas at Janastan, I have not found a moment's peace. I have therefore made up my mind to kidnap Sita, and I want you to help me." And then he described his whole plan of how you assume the form of a deer and attract Sita. Sita will want you to be her pet. Ram will go. And once I have Ram and Lakshman away from Sita, when you're being killed, you call out loudly, "Oh, Ram," or "Lakshman," "Oh, Sita," in a voice that sounds like Ram, because you know how to do those imitation things. And then I'll be able to kidnap Sita. That's my plan. I need your help. I will come and kidnap Sita and take her back to Lanka. Thereafter, when Ram becomes aggrieved and emaciated due to separation from his beloved wife, I will easily be able to slay him. He laid out his plan. It's something like Kamsa's plan to kill Krishna. It's Ravan's plan to get Ram by kidnapping Sita. Upon hearing the name of Rama, Maricha became greatly fearful. As he thought about Ravan's plan, his mouth became dry. Staring with unblinking eyes, Maricha addressed Ravana with folded hands. "O Lord, if you try to carry out this plan, it surely will cause the destruction of all the Rakshasas and your kingdom of Lanka. Because of your lusty nature and ignorance of Ram's prowess, you are foolishly rushing toward your own doom. Please, hear from me of Ram's supreme potency before you act blindly, thus bringing about your own destruction." So here's his little life story. "Previously, I used to wander about the earth, club in hand, feeling very proud of my superhuman strength. I subsisted on the flesh of rishis in the Dandakaranya forest. Out of fear, Vishwamitra approached King Dasrath to solicit Ram's help for protecting his sacrificial performances. Thereafter, while Ram guarded Vishwamitra's sacrificial arena, I ignorantly went there with the intention of disrupting the yajna. However, with just one arrow, Ram hurled me 800 miles. I mean, what's 800 miles? How from here to where is 800 miles? Like Detroit or something? Huh? New York. Chicago to New York. One arrow into the ocean, and then killed the other Rakshasas accompanying me. When I regained consciousness, having thus been spared by Ram, I returned to Lanka, but still was not cured of my false pride. Then, taking the form of a large carnivorous stag with a flaming tongue, I returned to the Dandak forest and roamed about drinking the blood of the rishis. And he went there with 2 other buddies that did the same thing. The companionship of 3. As it happened, I again came upon Ram, who was wandering in the Dandakaranya forest with Lakshmana and Sita, with the bitter memory of my past defeat in my mind, and considering how Ram had accepted a life of renunciation, I was determined to gain revenge. However, when I rushed at him, Ram released 3 arrows. My 2 companions were killed instantly, and I fled for my life. I think my life was spared only because Ram's arrows do not kill one who flees from the battlefield. Ever since that time, I have been consumed with fear of Ram. As a result, my inclination for violence and fighting has vanished. Having given up all malice towards others, I have taken to an ascetic life of yoga practice. However, I have failed to obtain peace of mind, for whenever I happen to glance upon a tree, I think that it is Ram, dressed in tree bark. Thus the entire forest appears to have become transformed into innumerable Ramas. Because of this, whenever I look anywhere, I become terrified. Sometimes I see Ram in my dreams, and I immediately wake up, my heart thumping in terror. Indeed, I become so afraid of Ram that whenever I hear a word beginning with the letter R, such as Ratha or Ratna, my heart trembles with fear. O King, for your own welfare, as well as for mine, I advise you to forget kidnapping Sita. Aside from fearing Ram, why should you perform such a sinful act? There is no offense more punishable than abducting another's wife. Remain satisfied with your thousands of wives and save your dignity, fortune, kingdom, and life itself. Ravan heard, and his mood changed. His first mood was, I need your help. And then he said, I didn't come here for this kind of answer. I'll give you a choice. You either help me or I'll kill you right now. Think about it. Maricha boldly declared, flatterers are easy to come by, my lord. Rare is that person who will speak unpleasant words that are meant for one's benefit. A minister should always give good advice, even if uncalled for, especially when the king is misguided. Unfortunately, however, it is seen that when one is about to die, is never willing to take good advice. O king, if we carry out your plan, I am certain that both of us will end up dead. I would rather die at the hands of an exalted enemy on the battlefield rather than be killed by you here. Therefore, let us depart at once. So Ravan patted him on the back and said, this sounds more like you, Maricha. Let's go. And off they went, and they went to Panchavati, and he did his thing. Here's the description of the deer. It's a nice description. Maricha's deer form had numerous jewel-like silver spots, with the tips of its horns appearing like sapphires, its mouth appearing like a pinkish lotus flower, its tail like a rainbow, and its ears were bright blue. Indeed, the magical deer to have been constructed from many varieties of valuable jewels. With a dazzling luster, the deer seemed to illuminate the entire area surrounding the cottage. Sometimes it nibbled at the grass, and sometimes it frolicked among the trees. So you know the rest. Sita, oh, look at that beautiful deer. This is a very important event. The commentators of the Ramayana say, this is the first time in Sita's life that she even had a thought separate from satisfying and pleasing Ram. She's thinking of selfish enjoyment. She wants the deer. Saying, oh, when we go back to Lanka, it's only 1 year from now, when we go back to Lanka, then we can have the deer in our garden. You know how much I love the garden in Lanka. And if for some reason you can't capture the deer, well, we can always kill the deer, and then we can sit on the deer skin together. Wouldn't that be nice? Sounds like, that's not Sita. That's a sense enjoyer. So the acharyas say, from that point, Sita starts to take on the function of a living entity that goes away from the Supreme Lord with separate enjoyment desires and gets captured by Maya, in the form, in this case, the form of Ravan. And then there's a whole pursuit of the Supreme Lord to regain the living entity back to his association. That's how Sri Vaishnava Acharyas described that scene. So she gets like, wow, let's get the deer. And then, as was the plan, this is a doubt that I had always. Maricha knew that Ravana was a bad guy and Ram was a good guy. So why did he say, oh, Lakshman, oh, Sita? Because he knew Ravana is a bad guy. And he knew, he would do bad things because of it. So why did he do that? And the answer is given. Maricha wanted Ravana to be killed as quickly as possible. It was revenge. But he also knew that when Ravana was killed by Ram, he would become released from all of his sinful propensities by contact with Ram. So he wanted his welfare, he also wanted his destruction. If both Lakshman and Ram were to not be present with Sita, Ravan could kidnap Sita, and since Ram was the most chivalrous person in the world, he would kill Ravana to rescue Sita. When Sita heard Maricha's cries, she forced Lakshman to go search for Ram. So that's the story of Maricha. We don't hear anything more about him because he's dead. But he had an important role to play in Ramayana. I mean, the drama was known. Ram is omniscient, and why he killed Subahu but didn't kill Maricha? Because he had another function to bring about the destruction of Ram. Now, he wasn't like, hey, what's my part in the drama? And he just read a script. He wasn't conscious of being an assistant to Ram's Leela. But he's Ram's, the personality of God, it is in the heart of all living entities. And he was given the opportunity to render that service to Ram, to help bring about the destruction of Ravan. And not only Ravan, but the entire Rakshasa race, along with the 14,000 soldiers. According to what you know who Vali and Sugriva were? Vali, V-A-L-I, and Sugriva, they were two brothers. They were monkey or Vanara kings. Okay. At a certain point, the wife of Vali said to Lakshman, you know who's Lakshman? Ram's brother. She said to Lakshman, I heard from my husband Vali that when Ram is going to be killing Ravan, but to get to Ravan, you have to deal with also all the Rakshasas that are in Lanka. And my husband said, it's 1 billion. That's a big city. 1 billion Rakshasas. So we're going to need the Vanaras. You're going to need their help. So, that was the plan. Sugriva, a friendship was made between Sugriva, monkey king, or Vanara king, and Ram, that they would help one another, because they both had the same plight. Their wife was taken by another man. So Ram helped Sugriva get restored with his wife, and Sugriva helped Ram get restored with Sita by the help of the Vanaras. It's a really interesting good guys, bad guys story. But, it's not just good guys, bad guys. It's the Supreme Lord and teaching how to live by principles of devotion to the Supreme, but always in accordance with the codes of proper conduct or theistic conduct. It's a really powerful literature. If you're interested in hearing the whole story, there's a devotee in Chicago that gives a class once a week, every Saturday morning, and he's just discussing the whole Ramayan story. He's really into it. Nityananda Pran? Have you heard his name? Yeah, Nityananda Pran. He loves Ramayana, and he gives a really good class. I haven't listened, but everyone goes, wow, it's a good class. He's just telling the story with, practical application of the story. It's very inspiring message, and there's people of all different ages. Young people really like, because there's combat, so they like that. Especially boys, they like the battle scenes. I don't know about girls, but it's very intriguing and very edifying. So let's see if there's some discussion. It's already 8:05. So our host family has the first opportunity to discuss any points.
I don't have a question, but I have two comments. One is I was thinking about this Brahma's boon to Suketu, that Yaksha, that you will have a daughter who will be, have a strength of 1,000 elephants.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that even a benediction, when not properly used in the service of the Lord, can become a curse.
Sure.
Whereas a curse, which is taken properly in a proper attitude, can become a benediction.
Yeah.
Like Chitraketu and Indradumna Maharaj, and so this.
Yeah.
Thought about it.
Yeah.
And the second thing
Nalako
was
Veramani Griva.
yes. And then the second thing was, I also had that same question I wanted to ask, like, why didn't Maricha surrender to Ram? Because he knew
He
his
could
power.
have.
And then you gave the answer for that.
Yeah. He was afraid. So, he didn't surrender because he was afraid. He could have seen protection. If he's so strong, take shelter of him, he's merciful, and he'll give you protection. But he didn't think like that. He was afraid. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Stick to, my request is, stick to questions and not just reflections. You understand what I'm saying? I was appreciating this and I was appreciating that. You can do a little bit of that, but sometimes it takes us in a funny direction. Go ahead. Okay. Well, so go ahead and do, because there's no comments or questions here. Go ahead, make your reflections. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. When we hear about Maricha, what nice to know about him is the glories about Ram. He spoke to Ravana actually. So that is so pleasing to hear about him actually. Yeah, Maharaj. It's only a question. I do not have a question, Maharaj. Sorry.
His redeeming quality was he wasn't so stubborn like others that are facing Ram. Of course, he was spared both times. One, he was with the arrow 800 miles. Then the other time, he was fleeing, going the opposite direction, so the arrow didn't kill him. But he understood, here's a formidable person, and I'm not going to oppose him. He didn't have sufficient intelligence, because he had been a flesh-eating, living off the flesh of rishis in the forest. That's like, whew. So his diabolical side, he had given up, but what about the reaction for all of those bad activities? His consciousness was pretty covered. But nonetheless, with revere and respect, at least for the power aspect of Ram. Yeah.
I have one question, Maharaj. So, for Sita Devi, even though she had, everything, and why at this point, when she saw Maricha, kind of get into this mode of, going after that, that Maya, just at that point.
It's Yogamaya. You know the meaning of Yogamaya, right? Yogamaya is an internal potency that assists the possessor of that potency, Krishna or Ram, to enact pastimes. So the enactment of the pastime is the killing of Ravana. That's one. So it precipitated the just cause for his killing Ravana. Abducting Sita was the just cause for killing Ravana by Dharma principle. Second, he appeared in the world at the request of the demigods to quell the influence of Ravana and his horde of associates. Vinashaya Chaduskritam from Bhagavad Gita. So that was a second purpose that was being fulfilled by what Sita did. And the other, our commentators explain, is to demonstrate what happens when you deviate from the principle of submission to the master, the supreme master, the supreme personality of Godhead. So she was taking that, by Yogamaya influence, was taking that position of a selfish entity that wants to enjoy. That's not her. It's Yogamaya. So that the pastime could be enacted. And then there's other lessons in Ramayana from our, this is now, you know who Ramanujacharya's spiritual master's name was? Jamunacharya. Jamunacharya. You know Ramanujacharya?
Okay.
Yes, Ramanujacharya had his spiritual master, and his name was Jamunacharya. So Jamunacharya studied and wrote extensively on Ramayana. He taught everything to one of his elder disciples named Sri Shailapurna, who was Ramanujacharya's mother's brother, his uncle. So Uncle Shailapurna, Sri Shailapurna, was visited by Ramanujacharya in Tirupati, and he spent months with him learning everything that Jamunacharya taught him about Ramayana, and then so Ramanujacharya taught Ramayana according to Jamunacharya's teachings about Ramayana. And then nearly a century later, another great commentator also residing in Tirupati wrote extensively on those. There's 18 main themes, according to Jamunacharya, in Ramayana. And many of them have to do with this topic. You know, the function of surrender, sharanagati. So there's several elements in those 18 themes that are connected. And Hanuman plays the guru function to go bring the message of Ram to Sita and bring the wayward entity back into the company of Ram. It's a guru function. So one of the classes I'm going to be speaking while here, before too many days, is there's 39 verses in the beginning of Sundarakanda where Hanuman is preparing himself to jump off Mahendra mountain and go get Sita. So that's where Sundarakanda begins. And it's the function of Guru preparing himself to perform the function of Guru. The qualifications and the steps needed to be taken by one who's going to perform that function. So this is our acharyas, primarily the Sri Vaishnava acharyas, commenting in this way. Hanuman is performing the function of Guru to bring Sita back to Ram, living entity back into the company of their protector, the personality of Godhead. It's describing, it's one layer, it's not metaphorical, it's just a layer of understanding of the process of surrender and connecting in the various elements that connect living entities with the personality of Godhead. So there's scripture that teaches, and then there's the history that illustrates the teaching. That's what Puranas and Itihasas are. It's taking the teaching, the scriptural teaching, and demonstrating it in story form. But real story, not otherwise. So why did Sita do what Sita did? Yogamaya to help enact Ram's purposes. Then there's another purpose being enacted, which is love and separation. You're familiar with that teaching, right? It's a important Vaishnava teaching. Love has to have separation. The absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? That's English saying is there. So when there's separation, the intensity of the love goes way up. Now it looks sad, but it's an heightening of affection for the beloved. So Sita is feeling and Ram is feeling. And they're reunited by arrangements. Okay.
I have a question, Maharaj. Ravana is a great devotee of Lord Shiva. That's how I know. Okay. And when Ravana was taking help from Maricha, and Maricha explaining everything about Ram, by the time he was telling, either you have to help, or otherwise I'm going to kill you, like that. So that time I could see Maricha saying, it's easy to talk about flattery words. Saying the truth is a difficult thing. So how I can understand this, Maharaj, because he is a devotee, God is giving him the intelligence to understand about Ram, or can we take it that way?
He hasn't become a devotee because he hasn't had this is another key. Why he didn't surrender is he didn't have association of devotees. Bhakti arises when you have association with bhaktas. I forgot that one. Whereas Sugriva had Hanuman's association. So he accepted Ram. Risha didn't because he didn't have any association. So his intelligence was not a devotional intelligence. His intelligence was, I'm keeping my distance. I learned I'm proud, powerful, this and that. I'm no match for him. I'm going to stay away. Not only stay away, but fear. And that's why I'm living in a cave. I can't even go out of the cave because I see trees and I see Ram. I'm living in a cave. Okay?
Maharaj, I always wondered why Lord Rama needed help from the monkey kings, but he should be capable of getting everything done by himself, right? And also another question is, in the south at that time only monkeys helped him, why there were no human kings who helped Lord Ram get to his destination?
Okay, the first one was Ram could have done everything himself. Why did he take help from others? Well, it's why when Krishna showed in Bhagavad Gita in the 11th chapter, Krishna showed to Arjuna, all the soldiers on this battlefield will be dead. They're not going back. It's already decided. So, but you can be an instrument for what I have already decided, or not. So he was giving Arjuna an opportunity to be an instrument. So same, Ram was giving an opportunity for their benefit and their pleasure, and his reciprocation of relationship with them. They can do some service.
So maybe the monkeys had some past good deeds, so they got this opportunity to serve the Lord.
Yes, not only pious deeds, they were instructed. This goes way back to when the Putra Kameshti Yagya was being performed. Rishishringa was doing a yagya so Dasrath can have sons. Simultaneously in the heavenly realms, the demigods are having a powwow, a conference. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Ravan, terrible. So Brahma said, Lord Vishnu has promised me that he will soon appear. Actually, one version says in Padma Purana that says he came in the midst of their assembly. Vishnu came and said, "No worries. I just now am going to make my appearance as 4 sons of Dasarath. And you please arrange for births to take place on earth." The Brahma relayed that message because the boon of Brahma was not human, and he cannot be killed by everyone, but he left out human and animals. So he told the demigods, you arrange for births of your offspring to take birth and assist the personality of Godhead in his quest to destroy Ravan. Now your other question is, why wasn't it humans instead of animals? Yeah, it could have been humans instead of animals, but it became animals instead. Now there's some acharyas that have some comments on that, but it's not. It's their bhakti, not necessarily Ram's reason why they were Vanaras instead of humans. And I don't know a definitive answer to that question. Why instead of Vanaras, why wasn't it humans? And they could have assisted him. It would have been equally nice.
Maybe at that time it was all forest and there were no humans.
No, there were humans. They just were, in different places. So it could have been people in other than in forests where there were people, humans. So that could have been the plan, but Ram had the plan different than that plan. And why it was his plan instead of humans, I don't know. Honest, I don't. I haven't. I thought of that question myself. Why? And he just, for his own reasons, he liked to engage. Because they weren't just like animals, they were extraordinary beings. They were sons of demigods. All of them. Because in the beginning, in Balakanda, there's a list of the names of the chiefs, and they're all sons of some demigod, celebrated demigod. Okay.
Question is from Radha. Would Maricha have preferred to be killed by Ravana by not following his order, or better be killed by Rama after following orders of Ravana?
Yeah, better be killed by Ram. Because it's once a despicable personality, abominable, sinful personality wants to steal another man's wife. I don't want to be killed by such a person. He's more powerful than me, but I'd rather be a virtuous king and be killed by the virtuous king. I'll have a better destiny being killed by a virtuous king than this abominable Ravana. And he knew that the result would be that Ravan would be killed by Ram. So he doesn't have to get back at Ravan. Ram will. Calculating. You two girls, anything? You're okay. Okay. Okay, we're done. Thank you very much.